Okay, so this part of the playbook, we're going to talk about the man coverages, and a lot of it's self-explanatory, and it's actually better for me to spend more time on the Madden field talking it through. Those videos would be broken up into three different segments for you. Um, and really, we're going to start with the initial version of nickel lurk. And then on the field, I'm going to talk about just some overall things you need to know about playing basically cover one style of defense and how it works. Some of the little things of how linebackers will banjo and in and out players for you, okay, with safeties. But just in the Fangio system, he calls Lurk, okay, and that's really in Madden just cover one hole, okay. So that's pretty much what it is. You have a low hole player, okay, a short hole as he calls it, and then you have a deep safety in the middle. I think the main thing we need to just remember is that we're going to always try to play out of a too high shell. So we're not going to line up and cover one traditional single high post safety look. So we're going to work on that in the field. I'll show you some techniques and how we're going to get aligned. And it's going to help us. It's going to help the defense, especially that safety who has to cover the tight end. But just in general, safety covers the tight end, the three corners, okay, cover the three wide receivers, and the running back the linebackers cover the running back, with one of them being the whole player. Now, both of these linebackers here, like we see here, especially when it's under center, they have an in and out situation where if the running back was to flare out left or right, one of the linebackers would play him and the other would become the hole. Okay. It even happens here sometimes in the gun, depending if the running back is on the other side or not. Okay. So just want to make sure you're aware of that. We'll spend some more time in the field. Cover one is cover one. It's probably still the best coverage in football. But the main thing is that we want to use it as a changeup in our system. And we also want to use it in certain situations because of the disguise. Okay. And then also just be aware that when you call cover one versus like a formation that's like a trip snub formation, that sometimes the corner will not come over and cover the third wide receiver. So you might need to get out of the coverage, okay? Or just be aware of that. I'll see you on the Madden field. Okay, the first coverage we'll take a look at is lurk coverage. Lurk coverage is built out of cover one hole, and you can also use cover one contain. What we're working on is basically what in Madden is just a inside low hole presence, right? With one of your underneath defenders, one of your linebackers, and then your safety is going to be manned up on the tight end. All right. So if you called it just out of the box, it would obviously give us that cover one shell. So you have some options depending on your league choices or your league parameters. If your league allows you to base align versus a regular 2x2 set spread, it'll look good. All right. It'll look like cover four and you'll be fine. Some leagues don't allow base align. All right. So the other options you have are to make sure that when you call, if you're going to call cover one, make sure it's part of your audibles. Okay. And then go into quarters or any type of too high defense. All right. And the one thing you can do is just back everybody up. Right. Make sure you use that player that's going to end up into the deep middle, right? So now you have control of him. You move him around, do whatever you have to do so he doesn't move, okay? And then you check back in the cover one hole. All right. So now you have that nice too high shell. Everybody's playing off coverage here, just as it was a one high shell. But now you have your safety back at about 14 yards. Okay. Which, if you watch my videos from early in the year, I didn't like the safety playing at 5 yards. I don't even really like nickels playing at 5 yards. I prefer press or I prefer off. And for a nickel, that would be about 7 yards. Safety, I like him about 10 to 12, but I'll take 14. I just feel like it makes it a lot easier when the tight end runs an underneath shallow route or a flat route. When they work from higher depth, okay, it's the same philosophy I use with stacked receivers. It allows the other routes that could bump that defender. It allows them to clear, and the guy works over the top with everything. It makes it a lot easier that they don't get picked. All right. But again, most importantly is that we have this look right here. Okay. Another way we can also do this is if your league allows you to nudge two players. Okay. So now you can just come out. Let's come out in quarters, or even let's come out in cover two. All right. Let's really try to confuse people. If they allow you to nudge a little bit, you just nudge these guys ever so slightly. You can go play somebody else if you want. Check the cover one hole, and then now you're all set. Okay, so that's a pretty easy adjustment. This is how I would run it. This is how the playbook shows it. All right, and you play ball from there. Now, the other thing, you guys, this is like a side tip. The players that are responsible for the running back, okay? Technically, in this situation, you have this weak side linebacker over here responsible for the running back, and you have the hole player, okay, in the middle, who's going to play the hole. You could flip the defense, the D line would change, but then also the safety assignment would change. So you don't want that, right? But just wanted to let you know that if you don't user these the linebackers, okay, in this situation, if for some reason the running back was to run a swing route, okay, behind the line of scrimmage, what would happen is the whole player would actually go and play man on the running back, and the former linebacker who was originally playing man would end up actually playing the middle hole. Okay, so just wanted to show that to you. If you guys aren't aware of that, let's include the safety. All right, so let's get into cover one hole. We have our assignments. If for some reason the back was on the other side, right, he runs a swing route and the tight end runs a vertical, or he runs an underneath route. Let's put him on a vertical here. As long as you don't use the safety, okay, and this linebacker, as long as the computer has control of those two players, what's going to happen is those two guys would switch. They should switch. Don't know why I didn't do it there. Maybe it's only an underneath route. Let's try it again. Let's just nudge real quick. Let's get to cover one. Let's get off of those guys. I know on a corner route that usually that they will switch, but let's just take a look at this. Let's go underneath route. All right. So they will switch there. Okay. It's not the best thing in the world, but sometimes it works out for you. Just want to let you guys know that the banjo rules apply for cover one and cover zero. Okay. Two man, not 100% sure how it works there. If it does, I think it does as well. But pretty much safeties and linebackers. Okay. So safeties and linebackers, as long as they're in man coverage, they will work with each other on tight ends and running backs if they switch. All right. Where they kind of most of the time, if the tight end works across opposite field and the running back goes the other way, they're going opposite of each other, the guys will switch for you. All right. They will also do it sometimes on corner routes, like flood route combinations. Okay. So just be aware of that. Now, if you do user the actual linebacker, one of the linebackers, okay, so in this case here, let's go back to cover one hole. I'm just going to show cover one hole, guys. All right. When we get the same situation where the running back flares out, tight end comes under. If you're using this situation, let me show you the man assignments. The computer will not switch. They will play their original assignment lock. So we call it. They will lock their original assignment. Right. So just want to let you guys know that that's important if you're playing this coverage. A lot of times when I play cover one hole, I like to actually play with the free safety. And sometimes, depending on the formation, we're going to go over that here in a second. I won't just run to the middle of the field. Okay. In this situation, I probably will. But a lot of times, because we are a heavy quarters, based program, even with my other playbooks, I'm going to probably sometimes just back up straight and play the middle of the field late. Okay. Which kind of gives the impression that we may not be playing cover one. But what we call that, and what I got that from is really going back to the Ravens system back in the 2000s with like Ed Reed and all the guys who coached with Ed Reed and all those great Ravens teams. They call that quarters tracking. So basically, you're gonna stay in your quarters, okay, assignment almost, or track that you would use if you were playing quarters. right? The same spot, you would just backpedal from there and you would play the middle of the field. Even though it's middle field closed, you would play it from your quarters position. So sometimes a lot of people think that some of these teams are not playing cover one. They might think it's pounder, they might think it's something else, but sometimes they actually are playing cover one. They're just playing it from a different host player is playing it from a different position. Also, it matters too. Let's say you're playing cover one and you're going up against a really good wide receiver, right? So let's just do something right here. Let's play cover two. Let's start in a cover two show, right? Cover two man show, right? I'm just going to move these guys. Then I'm going to go to cover one hole, right? So this is the look. So a lot of times, let's say, we have CD Lamb outside, right? We don't want to necessarily just leave him alone. So instead of playing middle of the field like it shows up here, we want to play maybe more like a half field, or we're going to lean towards him. So the way I used to teach leaning towards a receiver was we're going to basically say that this outside receiver over here is not on the field. Okay. And we're going to split the difference between the tight end and CD Lamb. So that would probably be about right there. Okay. So that's the middle of the field in my mind, in safety's mind. So that gives us, instead of going all the way over here and it being a go ball and you have to run all the way out there, we're just going to be a little bit closer just to give a little more body presence. We're going to kind of shrink the formation down to that and just exclude the outside receiver. And that corner is by himself and no overlapping safety help in cover one. Okay. So that's just something to think about. Now, why else would you want to use this coverage? Well, I do believe it's a good coverage. Cover one in general, whole is a good coverage versus underneath shallow routes, make routes. And it depends on how you want to teach the whole player, right? So if you want him to take away a route that's coming across the middle, then obviously he's in a good spot for that, right? So if somebody's really heavy into passing the ball over the middle, you can let the computer do it, or you can do it yourself. Obviously, we get a slant. We're going to take away that first slant, right? Now, people can get into a little more depth and say, well, I'm going to bait one play and do this and all that stuff. That's up to you. You decide what you want. Also, some people are really big into halfback angle routes, so I like it there. Now, usually I like cover one um, and short yardage situations, okay? And if you are in a short yardage situation, you might want to do this. Let's just start in a cover six shell, okay? You might just want to dart into too high shell, let the offense come up, and then just audible to regular cover one. Let the safety get down closer. Okay. You might want to press as well. All right, on short yardage. Now, in this game, we know press animations are really shitty. So you're gonna probably have to play over the top coverage. Okay. But still, being in a press is gonna make people worry. Okay. And that's what you want. So you might want to get out of that too high shell on short yardage and use it for that. But if you don't want to do that, you can also just use it from a normal too high shell look, let the safety play some depth. And then in that situation, I would use it for more first down, maybe 2 minute drill. Um, or if you just like the matchups. Now, going back to matchups, right? So really what I'm talking about when I'm playing cover one in general, all right, I feel like my outside corners are going to win and I'm trying to put body presence down the middle of the field. So that's the thought process. Are your corners better than the outside receivers? Then play more cover one. Okay, try to get more body presence in the middle. It makes every makes every throw a tight throw. All right. Another thing that I do sometimes in my own leagues, where I have a guy who's really, really going to pretty much. Also, I do use cover one robber to start sometimes. But if a guy is going to be a heavy curl guy, some people just love throwing curls. Okay, I will play underneath coverage. All right. So we can get into one hole. This is going to apply to all the cover ones, not just one, in this case, Lurk. But I will put my corners and everybody, the whole defense, into underneath coverage. All right. And then when I do that, I tend to back up a little bit because I just try to make sure that nobody's going vertical. And if they are, to make sure I get over the top of it because those corners are going to sit and they're going to squat. And people will notice that they will eventually throw a streak route versus you. Some people are so tied into off man coverage, I'm going to run a curl. This should win for you. It should at least spook somebody to not throw it, but sometimes they can still throw the ball. Look at the corners. You see on the snap, they just sit there and actually come running downhill. Let me take a look at something real quick because them running downhill is a problem, obviously, a little bit. It could become a problem. Let me just let me do this. I want to get into cover one hole from off. I don't know if they're gonna be a little further back. I don't think they are. Let me just back the corners off. I'm gonna back the corners off even further and let them play underneath coverage and get the same play. I just want to see if they react differently. And they still kind of run downhill. It doesn't seem as extreme, so that's pretty good. I can live with that, I think. Let's take a look at this replay. Yeah, it's still pretty much the same. It's just that obviously they're playing a little bit deeper, so they have a little bit more time to recover. But this is an example here, like this could become a touchdown, right? So you don't want to do that too often. All right. Maybe there's a better way. If you guys know, let me know. Um, let's talk about the different formations you can get. So 2x2, we're good. 3x1, really, it's not going to be anything different than 3x1. You're going to pretty much have to, if you want to declare what side you are, well, let's just look at one. Let's just look at one real quick. Tray open, okay? Tray open. Let's come out in quarters. All right. Let's just use the nudge here a little bit. So obviously here, quarters coverage, it's going to look like you're going to have one guy in the box. So people are going to be like, all right, run the ball. What I would do is kind of play with this backer here, right? And move around a little bit, kind of play in between, start, all right? But we're going to check the cover one hole. And because I nudge both the safeties, they're not going to move. But I know that in this, oh, did you notice that? Okay. So we're going to have to flip this one. And there we go. So make sure you get the safety that's on the tight end to make sure he's covering them. All right. But we can kind of play around with this and make people think, hey, is it a light box? Is it a heavy box? Okay. If you're not worried about the RPO here, which most tight ends don't run RPOs from this position, then you should be fine. But this is how we would play with it. But this is the reason why this is not necessarily a good short yardage play call for us. It's more of a first and 10, second and 10, 2 minute drive as situation play call. All right. And again, we just want to have that extra body presence in the middle. Something else to think about are dig routes, right? And then another last thing is if you have a running quarterback, this is another good call. We can put this guy into a spy, all right? And he will spy for us. If you don't want to use the linebackers, remember that they will also banjo this for whatever reason. If the back switches, the back goes out to the right, like on a swing route, those guys will switch assignments for you, and you don't have to worry about somebody being terribly out leveraged. Okay, so that would be another thing too. Some people who use the auto motions where the back swings out, now you're going to be able to cover it up a little bit better by using that coverage. Okay, it's easier for you. All right. So anyway, let's go to 2x2 stacks. Let's see if I can find one in here. Okay, of course we don't have one. Let's go to oh, there was a stack one. Here we go. So stack formations, I talked about this like when I did a video on what you have to look for. Okay. Let me just start in palms right now. I always think of corner routes first, okay, because that's what gets you beat deep. And then I think about shallow routes next, because everybody wants to just dump it off to a shallow, okay? And I think nowadays you might start having to think about halfback wheels as well, okay? So let's just nudge both the safeties, all right? And let's play cover one hole. So we are in a good situation here of helping out on the corner route, which usually comes from the slot receiver to the left of the screen, the one that's in the stack formation, okay, the one that's on the line of scrimmage. If we want to use it as safety, like we talked about, we can quarters track this, right? And if it is a corner route, did I pick one? I did. At least you're closer. So you're playing middle of the field from here, and then you can try to help out, okay? So that's one nice thing about doing it like this. All right. Guises the coverage a little bit. And then the next thing would be, all right, well, if we're worried about the shallow route combinations that everybody loves to run, then we can help out with a user. Now, you can't really do this with just you can't do let the computer, you can't expect the computer to do this by itself, but a user can potentially take care of some type of shallow route. And now you can be there for it. And I feel like playing the cover one hole was probably a better way to take care of shallow routes because it's a linebacker that's closer to the ball compared to later on if we get to like cover one robber and you have a safety coming down, which in their system they call a hole, by the way. Don't get confused with that. Um, but if this is the player that has to come down to the hole, sometimes it's a little bit tough to come from high and expect to get down there. I think it's in the Madden world, you kind of sneak on people when you play from underneath. All right. So, like one example I've seen people do is right off the bat, don't move right away, but then just make a decision and run with it late. Sometimes people are already predetermined in their mind where they want to go with the ball. All right. So that's big. Later on, we'll talk about cover zero pressure that I love to run against 2x2. Bubbles is what they call it. Technically, I'll talk about it later, but it kind of is going to come from the same look. And people aren't going to, they're not going to know if they're going to have time to throw the corner out all the time. So when you mix it in with this, you're pretty good. So I would say versus 2x2 compressed, if I'm worried about those routes, I'm also in good shape. And then the last thing is this, if I'm worried about that halfback wheel, I also can just play with the safety to the halfback wheel side. Hopefully it's not the sit down safety, but you can also help out and just watch him. You know what I mean? So if you also want to just put that deep safety into a half field or into a quarters, you can do that as well. All right. Um, Let me just show you one last trick here, guys. I'm really going to just focus on this one coverage for now because there's a lot of intro things I want to talk about. Let me get a play for you here that can help you guys out with something. All right, let me just go flank a spot. All right, and let me go back to I'm gonna call cover one robber to start. All right, I'm just gonna nudge real quick, and then I'm gonna go to cover one hole. All right. If you have match on, let me make sure match is on. Okay, we're gonna talk about this later. This is gonna be something that you guys will learn later on. Match is on. Okay, but let me just start here. It's probably a good time to start. If match is on, let me go with the curl play. It makes it easier. I'm gonna go with the good old wheel route combination that people just love to use, right? So I'm gonna nudge the safeties. I'm just gonna play cover one. Match is on. If I take this safety, we're in cover one. Any cover one play, okay, or two man. So really any man play, all right. And I take the safety and I put him on an inside quarter, okay. And we have match on. So he's not. You would think, oh, well, he's just gonna play into his deep quarters and just play from there. Against certain formations, they programmed it that the safety, the deep safety, will actually, if you put him in a quarters assignment, you hot route him to a quarters assignment, hot route, he will actually play certain receivers on the field. Okay. So in a 2x2, all right, you press set like this. If the halfback runs a wheel route, okay, and that safety is aligned to the side of the halfback, and he's in the quarters assignment, he will actually take care of the wheel route. Okay. So let's just take a look at this right here. He will man him up. He will take him man to man. Isn't that nuts? So it really, and the funny thing is that it's not even just the wheel route; it's any route he runs. So even if he was to run a short route, he would do the same thing. Okay, so let me just kind of let me just prove it to you a little bit. Even if he runs to the right, that's probably the best way to prove it to you. Okay, so let me just quickly nudge and go to one hole. Okay, I'm gonna put this guy into a quarters assignment, right? And he plays it from depth. So if this guy stays like under 10 yards, he won't run down to him, but he will follow him. So I'm gonna just have everybody up here and watch that safety that I put into that assignment. He comes running over to the right and he kind of hangs out and plays over the top. You see him run across the field. So it's kind of something unique that you can do where if you want to watch the halfback, but you don't want to necessarily play with the deep safety, let's say you want to play with somebody else, and this is going to apply to a whole lot of man coverages that we're going to play with later. You could do that versus 2x2, compress sets like this. You can have basically the halfback covered by the safety. He plays it from depth. Okay, so just want to let you know. All right, we're going to use this later on, maybe to our advantage, and also we have to recognize it. Versus other formations, there's some other little things that happen. Okay, so we'll talk about that later. All right, so that's part one. The next thing, real quick, is bunch formations, right? So we got to make sure that we're aware of how we're going to cover bunch formations. Now, this one's a wide bunch. Do we have a regular bunch here? Let me hold on one second here. Next time I'll use a different playbook, guys. My apologies. All right, let's just work against this right now. All right, so we come out at any type of split safety coverage. Okay, we're just going to nudge. All right, I'm going to call one hole. Oops, I didn't get that in time. So this would be the code. So again, make sure in a 3-by-1 set like this happened last time too, we might have to flip the play, right, to get the assignments correct. Now, another thing, I've talked about this before, I actually like these guys being on different levels, right? So we have a guy that's close, a guy that's in between, right, about 5 yards, and a guy that's at 10. That's good. You can even take the corner, in my opinion, and back them up if you want and play them from depth. I don't think these guys are running to each other. I could be wrong, but I don't mind doing that as well. All right, that's a man coverage conversation. The corners. But we can play like this. And again, I like this because what are the formation? What are the routes we're thinking about? All right, we're thinking about corner route. Maybe we're not the best against corners here. We should be pretty good against shallow. Okay. And a lot of people are going to have some sort of shallow routes. Okay. A lot of people also I've noticed have been running a lot of like deep over routes, from number two. So that's something else where this guy can get in that window. So I do like this. And then I do like it in this situation. I actually do like this on third and medium. I don't mind this at all. Okay. So I just wanted to show that to you. I think that's a pretty good deal. Um, and that is it. I can't think of any other formations. I guess the other formation would be empty. And this is the one formation that I don't think we're going to want to play cover one, two, cover one lurk, as they call it. But let's take a look at it before we go. All right. So let's just line up in quarters. Right. I'm going to take the two safeties here and nudge. And then let's go with cover one hole. All right. So we know in cover one hole, everybody has to get aligned correctly. So in real life, yeah, that would make sense. If this is 21, oh, I see the other receivers. Okay, so this is a running back. Yeah, this would always be tough in real life because our safety would have to go and cover, the running back. We wouldn't want to do it like this, which the funny thing is that this is actually something that Fangio has in his system where they actually play in corners, almost like base the line, but they just stay on their side of the ball. And the safeties in the corners just cover the players that are close to them. So it kind of looks like this. But obviously, the bad thing about this, guys, is we get uncovered players, right? So you're going to have to potentially move over here, right? Make it look like you're playing this, and then come back over to the middle, which isn't bad, right? But you are in danger of bubbles and things like that. If people are going to throw screens, things like that, it makes it a little bit tough. But this isn't a bad, nice disguise, natural disguise. Okay, let me just flip the defense real quick and just see how it looks. Oops, on offense, let's flip it. All right, so that gets funky. See, that's what you don't want. And this is probably the natural alignment that they would want if you called regular cover one. They would have the safety go out there and cover it. But I nudged, so you're in a little bit of trouble there. Okay. So you would have to get out of the nudge, okay, and just reset this play. I don't think I can do it now. It's too late because I nudged already. So versus empty, you may not want to do that. So just play around with it. That might be a learning experience. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. Also, Trey Y flex is always that formation that makes it hard to cover. So this is another one that you may not be able to nudge here, but let's see what happens if we try it out. Okay, cover one hole. The assignments, you got to make sure that we get the right guys on the right people. And we can see we're a little bit screwed up here. I like that the corner came over. I just kept on flipping it, and eventually they got it right. I don't know if this is going to happen to all these 3-by-1 nub formations. I'm not 100% sure on that. I need more experience. I don't want to waste time on it, but I'll play around with it. Look, I don't expect to be running this coverage a lot, but Fangio does get down into a single high look or they get into middle field close coverages more than people think. I got some good information recently, and they like to show the two high shell, but they will drop down into single high about half the time. They're not always playing a two high defense. Okay, I think they're about 50-50 if I'm not mistaken. So some teams will line up in a two high and play some sort of two high regardless. But they are one of the teams that will still use single high safeties looks, well, final looks. Okay. Not to start, but they will get to it. All right. So that's pretty much Lurk. Wanted to start there. I know that was a long video, but I think it was worth just kind of making sure we understand all the man rules because as we move on, the man rules will be the same for every man coverage, especially when it comes to in and out banjos. Okay, that's going to be important to know. So whoever your user, you need to make sure that you understand that. All right. All right. I'll see you guys in the next video. We'll cover the rest of the man coverages, and then we'll go to the next one will be rubber, hole, and then we'll do fist. Okay. And then after that, we'll do a third video with pounder, finger, and ring. All right. All right. I'll talk to you later. Peace.